Okay, guys, I believe we can start. I triggered the recording button, so the session will be recorded. Welcome everyone to the first Sitecore User Group Jordan Meetup for 2025. Thank you for our speakers, Sebastian, Mohammed, and Robert. We're excited to kick off the new year with two excited sessions. Sitecore XM Cloud Development, A Journey for .NET Developers by Sebastian. And we have a second session for SUGCON Europe 2025 highlights and latest news. So looking forward for these. Sebastian, if you're ready, you can start. And you're muted.
Yeah, it's a beginner mistake, sorry. Right, so again, sorry, and welcome to this session about XM Cloud development, a journey for .NET developers. I have to say it's mostly introductory content, I would say. So if you are a pro, you might not get too much out of this presentation. That doesn't mean you should leave the call now, but just wanted to mention that. But maybe there's something in. Little bit of housekeeping. I would say keep your questions for the end. I'm happy to try to answer all of your questions. And let's see how it goes. So that's me. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Sebastian. I'm a technical product marketer at Sitecore at the moment. And yeah, Mohammed reached out to me for this presentation. I presented it before at the user group earlier this year, and it originated from a presentation I did actually 2.5 years at Symposium. But obviously, I took the chance to update the slides, so this is not 2.5-year-old content. And yeah. Before we get into the topic, I would like to know, like, we're not too many people, right? If I can see, but still, I'm interested in who's working at the moment in the XM Cloud project already. I'm not sure if there's any. There's a raise hand functionality that you can use. I see 2. Okay, and anyone who is running something like a POC or have started playing around with XM Cloud? Okay, so I am lacking a bit overview, but I believe then whomever did not raise the hand, XM Cloud seems to be more or less new. So we're definitely going through the basics, but also going into some of the more sophisticated topics. So we start getting everyone on the same page, looking at the architecture. We're having a look at the different editing apps that XM Cloud offers. Then let's check on how you would get started as a developer, for example. We look at the development workflow in XM Cloud. And last but not least, we also look at the DevOps side of things in XM Cloud. So first, to get things started and get everyone on the same page, let's have a quick look on what XM Cloud actually is. XM Cloud is a hybrid SaaS content management system. SaaS meaning software as a service. Hybrid, yes, because it provides, on the one hand, headless architecture, but it also provides enterprise features and layout and page management capabilities. Usually, a headless content management system only provides content through an API, but XM Cloud additionally provides layout information. So that makes it basically hybrid. Along with that, it comes with build and deploy services through a CLI, command line interface, and an admin UI. And content is made available through a scaled delivery layer named Experience Edge. So we come to this diagram a little bit later in more detail. Even though, as the name indicates, meaning XM Cloud, it's branched off from XM version, I think 10.2. It is still, so XM Cloud is still a unique product with similarities to XM and XP, and you will see that for sure. But it also has its own philosophy, and we go into that in the next slides to see what's same, but also see what's different. It provides embedded personalization, it provides embedded analytics, it has ABN testing form building capabilities, the DevOps tooling that I mentioned already, and very soon it will also have AI capabilities. And probably in the next presentation about the SUGCON recap, you will hear something about it. Compared to classical MVC implementations of XM and XP, it comes with different implementation approach on the head, but also on the CM side. And we will also have a deeper look into that. So XM Cloud comes with a lot of enterprise tooling that most of you have seen maybe already on slides or even worked with it. So every journey starts in the Sitecore Cloud portal. Here, all the DXP SaaS apps like Personalize, CDP, and of course XM Cloud. So everything what comes from your organization is available and can be accessed and managed from here. You might also have access to other organizations, and that can be very handy to, as a partner, for example, if you're working for several clients, then you can switch from one client to another and then see what apps they have provisioned in their cloud portal. One thing you can also do is manage access from here. From the cloud portal, you can navigate into the XM Cloud Deploy app, and here you manage your XM Cloud projects and environments. You deploy your code or manage credentials, but again, we'll come later to that when talking about DevOps. So XM Cloud Sites, as you can see here, is there to basically organize multiple sites. You can search for sites, you can create sites, and then select from one of the pre-built tailor-made templates that are hopefully available in your organization. And creating a site is nothing more than just following this wizard here, providing a name and some basic information, and then the site is being created for you. Usually takes around 2 minutes, and your new site is up and available. The page builder is, as the name says, what you see is what you get page building experience. So you can drag and drop components. You can select images from the media library or a connected DAM system. You can have inline editing, all of that, what you just saw in the short little demo. You can also personalize your pages from here, start an A/B test, or get insights about your target audiences through embedded analytics. And from here, you can also decide when content is ready to go live using workflows or publishing functionality. So that all probably sounds very familiar to you if you've worked with XM and XP before. What about Experience Editor? Well, Experience Editor is still there. However, in XM Cloud, Page Builder is the recommended tool to work on your content. And depending on how you build your head application, Experience Editor might also not be supported anymore. All right. So within the design library, you also find the component builder or some builder tools like the component builder. And the component builder is, as the name says, you can build components also in what you see is what you get way, define background images, add elements to your component, and then perform some inline editing, change themes, meaning the appearance, publish your components, and manage it all from there. And your component builder component will be available in the page builder that we've seen before. So Christian Hahn and I have done an analysis because we have a way how we build components before, right? With SXA or without. And now here's another option to build components, and there will be another one in the future. Again, I don't want to steal the thunder of the SUGCON presentation, but Christian Hahn and I have done an analysis what the component builder can help you with and where it's recommended to create components using the SXA way. So if you want to, watch out for the recording of the SUGCON Europe presentation we did last year in Dublin. There we did this analysis. Also part of the design library is the form builder. So you can create and manage forms using templates, for example, or you can create from scratch. So here in the demo, I use a template and adjust some of the fields that I have in there. And then last but not least, I define a webhook. In this case, as this is a newsletter subscription form, I choose the newsletter subscription webhook that I've defined before, so that data is sent via this webhook wherever it needs to go, basically. To manage content independent from visualization, you can use the Explorer. Here you can manage content items in a hierarchical structure. Looks pretty much like Content Editor, but is a more modern UI. And then just talking about it, a familiar face, Content Editor is still there. It is the admin interface to have an overview and be able to access every single item. So Content Editor is not recommended to be used by business users. That's most probably the page editor where we should have them. And this is more something, as I said, for administrators, for developers. Of course, Media Library is still your inbuilt asset library to organize images, PDFs, and all other kinds of assets. And to analyze what your audience resonates with on your website, XM Cloud Analyze provides insights about visitor behavior. You also get, by the way, you also get the results of your ABN tests here in the analytics. Last but not least, you have access to the settings for your site, so you can manage languages, analytics identifiers, and access also the desktop app and XM Cloud internal access management like roles and rights management. So just a quick overview, or that was just a quick overview about the apps that we usually deal with. The other ones that I haven't shown are still there, as I mentioned, roles and rights and so on is still there. It's just yeah, I haven't. You might be familiar with it. So now let's imagine you are in front of your first XM Cloud project, and requirements have been set, and your backlog is full of tasks, and the team is ready to rumble. And here comes already the first difference, which is the team. So while in Sitecore XM and XP project, you had a majority of Sitecore or .NET developers, in an XM Cloud project, you still find architects and QA testers, but you have a majority of web application developers. Ideally, the architect and the lead developer are the ones with a large Sitecore background, and the CMS developers is also the one who configures XM Cloud and implements the content architecture, meaning creating required items. For this person, it's also helpful to have knowledge. I mean, beside the deep understanding of Sitecore, it's also helpful to have knowledge about the used front-end frameworks. So that means, as a former Sitecore developer, being now a CMS developer, it makes sense to familiarize with TypeScript or JavaScript or whatever the chosen front-end framework is. So the majority, as I mentioned, of developers are web application developers. And for the web application development, we can divide them into integration and UI developers. Being the integration and kind of back-end developer is usually the place for former Sitecore, or is again a place for former Sitecore and .NET developers. So you prepare the views, implementing business logic or integrations. And then the UI developer cares mostly about the front end of the application and finalizing the views that have been maybe set up by the backend developer. The UI developer cares most. Oh, yeah, I talked about that already. So of course, the roles can blend based on the individual skill set in the team. And last but not least, there needs to be some testing, someone testing everything and ensuring the quality of the implementation, which is the QA tester. One thing to consider for the team in a sprint zero is to familiarize with the architecture, and let's go through it one by one. So let's start with the content management, which is embedded into the XM Cloud offering. So this is very similar to the previous CM role in XM and XP. So this can be seen as the brain, the place where you provide the best possible experience for marketers to achieve their business goals. When content is ready for public, it is published to Experience Edge. So Experience Edge is a geographically distributed delivery network that provides a GraphQL API to query for content and layout information. So instead of content delivery service that we had before, we have now Experience Edge as a publishing target. The rendering host is responsible for hosting your customer-facing head application, basically, yeah, your website. This is usually scaled to match the expected traffic. The editing host is an internal rendering host that supports all node-based front-end frameworks such as Vue, Next, or Angular. And the editing host is required for any what you see is what you get experiences, such as using Page Builder, for example. If you are using a non-node-based front-end framework, such as .NET Core, for example, you can have or configure an external editing host. You have to care for it yourself. So it's not embedded in the XM Cloud offering, but it's easy to configure, and you can just use this one. So you're not hindered to use .NET Core here. Mentioned several times already, XM Cloud provides inbuilt build and deployment services. Simply connect your code repository and then trigger deployments to an environment with merging your code into a dedicated branch. So this is initially set up when you set up your environment. And then you can add more deployments if you have different environments where, for example, a dev branch should go to a dev environment, or the main branch should go to the production environment, or maybe to a non-productive, pre-productive environment before. So, of course, with access to any of the SaaS products like XM Cloud, Sitecore provides you access to the Sitecore Cloud portal that I've shown before. Now that we are familiarized with the XM Cloud architecture and the differences between XM and XM Cloud a little bit, let's have a look on the development. So if we take the diagram used before when talking about implementation, we take a look at two areas. We have the CM and we have the head application. So the head application contains all your business logic and functionality regarding the customer experience. Depending on your chosen front-end framework, this is very JavaScript or TypeScript heavy. From here, you can export data through serverless functions, for example, or connect APIs to access and show data coming in from third parties in real time. Or you need to configure a mail client and send form data to it. So all that is done in the head application. When you're using, for example, Azure functions as serverless functions, there is a lot .NET still involved, right? Due to the nature of software as a service or SaaS, even though we do not want to deploy custom code to the XM Cloud CM instance, as we do want to benefit from the auto upgrade functionality and the ability to not care about all the hosting, right? So the way to customize the content management experience for marketers is through external serverless functions. Well, that's one way to do it. This can be time-based, triggered Azure functions, searching for updates and enriching or exporting data, or Azure functions triggered by request, for example, a webhook that you can figure in XM Cloud. By the way, you should, like, if you want to do the XM Cloud developer certification, webhooks is relevant for that one, so keep that in mind. A lot of customizations can be done also through PowerShell. Again, calling Azure functions to run content operations, for example. Another way that we are currently working on, and again, I don't want to steal the thunder of the SUGCON presentation, but we're working on the marketplace, so you can have app integrations. So here you will have different touch points in XM Cloud where you can offer UIs for marketers, editors, and developers that help them on their daily business. In general, what you can think of is all communications with the CM role will be done through APIs, such as the Management GraphQL API, and usually SDKs will help you build these. All right, to develop your head, you need to choose a front-end framework. So that's something you do in the very beginning. And it's highly recommended to use JSS and the starter kits that we provide, as you get several features out of the box, such as multi-site support, page design concept, page builder, editing support, and more. However, this limits the front-end frameworks to currently Next.js, .NET Core, and Angular. And I have to say, .NET Core and Angular are not in a version 1 yet. They are in alpha or beta releases currently, so they don't provide the full feature set that Next.js does. If you are curious about what's missing for the .NET Core one, just take a look into the GitHub repository of it. You find So everything is documented in GitHub issues, and whatever you find in there is currently not supported, which is not much, but there are still some gaps to the Next.js one. And we are working on treating that more openly. I know there's a community project on Astro as well that you can use, but these three are the ones supported by us at the moment. Important to understand, we do not have the content delivery server anymore that had a whole Sitecore XM XP instance running. We do have now a head application that only communicates with XM Cloud via APIs. And yeah, let's open up the head a bit and take a look inside. On the one hand, we still build the front end of our website, so meaning the UI. In case of Next.js, we are building usually TSX, meaning TypeScript files that include a model and a view, right? And also the implementation for rendering variants is directly handled in here. This is very similar to the views we created in MVC, I would say. The syntax is easy to understand, and the starter kit contains a couple of examples that you can use to create your own components. Item-wise, it's still the same, I would say, so nothing changed there to create components. Yeah. In addition to that, we put the most of the business functionality and integrations also into the head. Everything that needs to be displayed from third-party systems or something that needs to be computed is all done in there. You can also build your own server-side code with APIs to be consumed by the head. And also here, the starter kit provides already functionality and examples. Due to the nature of SaaS and the promise to never upgrade again, it is recommended to not deploy code, just to say it again. And there might be configuration changes needed, but try to configure as much as possible through items. And definitely PowerShell can be your friend, and of course, webhooks. So when setting up the local environment, we recommend just connecting your local front-end app to the CM or Edge GraphQL endpoint. This is sufficient for any kind of application development. You can even run it on a Mac, and you can also connect the page builder to your local rendering host, so you can test all the changes in there as well. Ideally, you have a limited amount of people doing item creation. That simplifies definitely the way on having a limited amount of XM Cloud environments available. And then you would serialize everything down into your repo. Alternatively, you can set up a local XM Cloud instance running on Docker, but this is definitely more effort. It's Windows only and can be a hassle sometimes, I have to say. So let's talk about DevOps. So one of the strengths of XM Cloud, and I mentioned that a lot of times already, but now we get into it, is the DevOps tooling. XM Cloud offers ways of building your deployment pipeline. On the one hand, using the out-of-the-box pipeline through the deploy app, and you can also build your own custom pipeline using the XM Cloud command line interface. So if your scenario is supported, you should definitely go with the out-of-the-box XM Cloud deploy pipeline. Your project will be connected to your source code repository, and each branch can be hooked up with an environment. So when changes get committed to one of the branches, that will trigger the deployment to the connected environment. It's as easy as that. It's done in the setup process, and it takes you 5 minutes, and you have a whole deployment pipeline ready. Beside the easy setup, it's also constantly improved, and you're benefiting from all the effort we put in. So definitely recommended to use it. However, we only support currently GitHub and Azure as a repository provider. So if you use something else, that could be a reason to go with the next option that I will be talking about. And we only offer a node-based editing host internally, as seen earlier on the architecture chart. So if you're going for .NET Core, that might be also a reason not to use the out-of-the-box XM Cloud deploy pipeline at the moment, but rather using the CLI. So if you have any differing requirements, as I mentioned before, you can definitely use our CLI to build your custom deploy pipeline using GitHub Actions or Azure DevOps or any pipeline tooling that you would like to do. So we provide the XM Cloud CLI that offers all required commands to deploy to the parts in your XM Cloud architecture. So if you want to orchestrate your own build and deployment pipeline, you can easily do that. When we re-implemented the SUGCON sites, for example, we had to create our own pipeline using GitHub Actions as well, as we use Next.js for the SUGCON sites, but then .NET Core for the MVP sites. And it's all in the same XM Cloud instance. It's all in the same repo. We're pretty much supported with the CLI, so that all works fine. By the way, it's open source, so if you look out in the Sitecore GitHub repo, you will find the introduction XM Cloud introduction repo, and you will find examples how to build that pipeline. So finally, let's talk about the hosting for your head application. For sure, Vercel is a maintainer of Next.js, no question on that. So Vercel is definitely a great choice for hosting your XM Cloud run head application. And XM Cloud has a native integration to connect to Vercel. But your requirements are unique, so you should rather check for the feature sets of each provider. Do they offer advanced support for front-end framework features like incremental static generation, middleware, serverless functions, but also how is the developer experience? And probably most important, what are the costs? And what about scalability? And when evaluating for enterprise setting, make sure to look for security, single sign-on integration, dedicated customer support. But last but not least, weigh out what's most important for you, and and decide what fits best to you. So I'm coming to the end of this presentation, and to summarize, we have different areas of development. We have, on the one hand, the front-end application, where we build the web app or website consuming the content. We build that in the front-end framework of our choice. Of course, the ones we provide with starter kits and SDKs are recommended to be used because we provide already some functionalities. And you build with a styling framework of your choice, so that may be still Bootstrap or Tailwind or whatever you want to use nowadays. Another thing that will be built in the front-end app is the middleware. So building functionalities, well, the ones that mentioned here, redirects or multi-site, are already provided with the starter kit, but maybe you have other backend kind of functionality that you wanna handle in there. Then we have integrations, building integration to third-party systems. I mentioned, for example, either processing data or showing data in real time from a third-party application. And then on the other hand, we have the CMS, where we want to build functionality to extend the content editing experience. This can be done through serverless functions, PowerShell as well. We can have XM Cloud, anything that connects to the XM Cloud API. And of course, we can use webhooks to trigger, for example, again, a serverless function or something else. Last but not least, and this is forward-looking, is the marketplace. So if you want to do UI integrations with available touch points, you can do that through marketplace apps. So usually you would add functionality for the workflow of marketers, editors, and developers, and have your apps that are integrated and registered with a marketplace and then activated for your XM Cloud instance. You would have that self-hosted wherever you want to. We've seen that XM Cloud has a lot of advantages compared to XM and or XP. So you have no hosting efforts, as it's software as a service. You have benefits from new features coming in constantly, and you can see in the changelog, if you haven't seen it before, on the developer portal, we show all the things we update in XM Cloud, and it's done by week, I would say. Every week there's coming something new, something minor, something major. You can configure the CMS mostly in items and serialize these, so you keep your environments consistent. You can utilize the inbuilt build and deployment pipeline. We provide Edge as a delivery layer along with the graphical endpoint. We provide the JSS SDKs and headless SXA, which are now part of the product. So there's no extra licensings for which has been two separated modules before. There's unified identity, which means you have single sign-on across all your composable products. You have embedded personalization and A/B testing. You have the form builder. You have more efficient and performant builder apps like the page builder, and you have multi-site management tooling in there. And I probably missed out a lot more, but these are the ones I would like to highlight. So when you've worked with Sitecore XM or XP before, you will recognize some familiar patterns still and technologies, which I haven't gone deeper into now in XM Cloud. So SXA, or now headless SXA, is the standard in XM Cloud when it comes to building components, page and partial designs, multi-site, and more. So all of these patterns, if you have experienced those before in XM XP, these are still there. JSS is still the headless SDK to help querying data and ensuring the content is maintainable in the page builder. In the SUGCON recap presentation after this one, you will probably hear about the content SDK that's coming. And item serialization is done via Sitecore Serialize. So there's no TDS, no unicorn. I'm not sure if they even work with the XM Cloud. And we still have items, renderings, templates, layouts, all of that still exists. So as we are used to in XM Cloud, including the main editing tools like content editor, media library. There could be still containers if you run XM Cloud fully local. I try to avoid it, me personally, but yeah, it's up to you. Also, the configs are patched the same way. However, we only do config patches for the CM role, as there's no CD anymore, right? And if you ask me for the 4 things to remember from this presentation, most implementation happens in the head application. XM Cloud is a SaaS product. Number 2, XM Cloud is a SaaS product, and it's not intended to be customized by code. There is configuration through files or items. There are APIs that you can use, but we do not deploy code to the CM. Number 3, for former Sitecore developers, there's still a lot to do. So don't worry and embrace the new. And what I can say, as having worked with XM and XP before, I really love XM Cloud. So XM Cloud is really awesome, and I'm not just saying it because I'm a product marketer. I really like working with XM Cloud. And with having said that, I collected some resources to get you deeper into most of the topics presented today. I probably share the slides after that presentation. And well, it's being recorded, so you can definitely look it up afterwards. And yeah, I'm done with the presentation. Thanks a lot. I hope this was valuable time spent, and maybe even more valuable would be to discuss your questions.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sebastian. I have 2 questions,
Sure.
if you may. First question is, can you elaborate more on the editing host and how it basically works?
I try to. My mouse just died. No, it didn't. No, it's fine. Let me put you back on the screen. So the editing host, the page builder, or like when you have what you see is what you get editing, you need your application being rendered somewhere, right? So in order to be displayed and do inline editing, for example. So we use a rendering host for that, because this is what your app is being deployed to. And instead of using the rendering host that you use for your customer-facing apps, we have one built into the XM Cloud instance. We just call it editing host, but it's basically a rendering host. It's a node server, right? So it's nothing more than that. Where when you deploy to XM Cloud, so when you run your deployment, this part is automatically being deployed. So XM Cloud Pages basically picks up the app being run on that internal node server, and then the SDK cares about the rest, adding all of the stuff that Pages or also Experience Editor needs in order to render all the fields that you can inline edit. So that's I can't go deeper into that, but that's basically the role of the server.
Yeah, I get it. So basically, it's the front-end application deployed to the XM Cloud instance.
Absolutely, yeah.
And the goal behind it is just to see Experience Editor or Pages or
So it's not scaled, right? So you don't want to have public traffic on it. It's just for your editors, for your marketers, but like inside your company.
The other question I have, I think you mentioned middleware somewhere in the slide.
Yeah.
Is that an XPS feature, like similar to pipelines that we used to on Sitecore?
So I'm not sure about other front-end frameworks, because right now I've just gone with Next.js. And yes, middleware is a feature in Next.js, but again, I don't know if there are similarities to any other front-end framework. So yeah, it's basically an idea where you have all your functionality that's not directly front-end related. And yeah, it's kind of the back end of the head application, I would say.
Okay, got it. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Do you guys have questions for Sebastian?
Yeah, I have a question. Thanks, Sebastian, for your presentation. Regarding the hosting, when you said Azure or Amazon, that could be used as along with Netlify and Vercel. Are we talking about web apps that like just renders an Next.js application, or?
Yes. So when we talk about XM Cloud, this is just your editing offering, right? So this is the part which is software as a service. And even though we have an internal rendering host / editing host, this is all just provisioned for you for the editing experience. If you have customer-facing apps, and you will have that because that's why you have XM Cloud, you will have to host that yourself, and you will have to choose a provider for that. And that heavily depends also on the front-end the front-end framework that you are choosing, right? So if you're going for Azure, you probably have chosen .NET Core as a front-end application framework. If you chose Next.js, for example, then Netlify or obviously Vercel will be a good option. But that goes hand in hand, and that part still remains on your side as an infrastructure.
Cool. One more question, if I may. Are you familiar with any production websites that use any framework other than Next.js, like Angular or .NET Core?
So I don't have a good overview about our customers, but as I said, the MVP website currently runs on .NET Core. So that's live, public, productive, and it's open source, so you can see how it's implemented. You find examples in there, but we also have a starter kit for that nowadays, and the SDK. Again, to repeat, it's not up to date with what's offered by Next.js, but it's documented in the GitHub repo for it, so you can see what's missing.
Okay, thank you.
And we build, by the way, when we build out the MVP site, this whole starter kit and everything was not existent. So it was still possible to build your app with an, let's say, non-supported, in quotation marks, non-supported front-end framework. So you can basically build with any kind of framework. Of course, they all have differences, and they are differently supported, again, by SDK, starter kits, and all of that. But we built the MVP website without having the starter kit and without having the SDK as it is now, so it works. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Anyone else?
I have a question, please.
Sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah, on XM Cloud, how can we control or let's say customize caching? Like, can we update like CDNs or add CDNs to the application and all that stuff?
Yes. So when we talk about caching, we probably talk about front-end caching. Is that correct? So
Yeah,
anything that
front-end caching, and for example, the CDN endpoint for the media library, basically.
so you can still have a CDN. However, your front-end application is anyway scaled out based on whatever provider you choose, right? So if you choose Vercel, for example, they care about how much, like, depending on the traffic that comes in, they scale out your application automatically. Also depends on your budget for sure, but that's handled in there. I'm not like what I can say is all the caching is handled by the front-end hosting provider on the one hand. I'm not sure if you can build any other custom things into the app. I'm not as deep into that topic, to be honest, but we don't have a CD anymore, right? So it's not that we configure caching as we did before. You can still run a CDN. You could even put a CDN, I think, on top of your web application, but you can also have a CDN providing your imagery. However, the images are already, like, Edge is nothing different, I would say, than a CDN. So this is where all the stuff is basically pushed out on. So that's your delivery layer already on top. So you might want to check if that's still needed.
Oh, yeah, I got your point, because it's already auto-scalable, so we may not need even that CDN endpoint to handle caching. Okay, thank you.
All right. I think that would be all. Thank you so much, Sebastian.
Yeah. Happy to be here and open up for the next presenters.
Yep. Mohammed, Robert, whenever you guys are ready, you can screen and start on.
Yep. Okay, great. I'll share my presentation. Okay, great. Okay, perfect. So can you see in the presentation view? Is that okay? All looks good?
Not the presenter view. I think that,
yeah.
Do you want to like show the slide as presenter view, or?
And
we can see
as a slideshow.
Yeah, just run
we
it. We're seeing the PowerPoint now.
Yeah.
But not the slideshow.
Okay, let me see, how can I do this? Yeah. Okay, sorry, I'll try and change this. I'll just do share entire screen. And then, yeah. Okay, how about that?
Yes.
Okay, perfect, cool. Yeah, so me and AJ are going to take you through a few of our highlights from SUGCON Europe, which took place about 2 weeks ago in Antwerp in Belgium. And yeah, we went to that, and it was, yeah, 2 really kind of valuable days with a lot of really good talks as well. So yeah, it was a really good event. And just a bit about me, I'm a Sitecore optimization consultant at Remarkable in London. I've been there about 3 years. Previously, I spent 11 years in Dubai. I'm mostly focused on things like content, personalization, working with new tools, training, and things like that. And I've been working on Sitecore projects for about 6 years. And I'm a strategy MVP for the last 4 years as well. So I'll be taking you through kind of more the marketing strategy side of the talks, and AJ will be taking you through more the kind of dev side of things. So yeah, the first talk, I've got my kind of top 10 that I'll be going through. So the first one was the keynote. That was the kind of big kickoff on day 1 with Dave O'Flanagan, obviously CEO, and Roger Connolly, the Chief Product Officer, and Danny Robinson, the CTO. And the theme of that kind of keynote was all about evolution and adaptability. It was quite fitting that we were in the Darwin Hall was the name of the room that this keynote was in. So that's kind of in keeping with this theme of evolution as well. So yeah, there's a lot of talk about kind of AI first, the intelligent DXP, a lot of the kind of stuff that we've heard in these type of things before. And obviously very much focused on Sitecore Stream at the heart of all this stuff. Roger then went through some of this kind of changing face of search in this kind of zero-click age. You know, people are asking Google these kind of AI snippets, as opposed to just looking for links and then going and going to drive traffic to a website. Instead, you get the answer that you're looking for straight away. So how can different brands and companies kind of adapt to that? He also showed off some of the kind of AI-powered A/B testing stuff, some of the personalization stuff, some of the features around auto tagging, language translation stuff. So yeah, we got a lot of nice stuff from Roger there, and then there was a bit of a hint towards the 4th of June being a big kind of announcement of something or other. So it wasn't. If anyone was at the Dublin keynote last year at SUGCON Europe, and we got a really nice sneak peek of all the Sitecore Stream stuff that was coming down the tracks. And we didn't kind of get anything like that this time. So we didn't get there was no essentially a big splash, but it was still really good to hear from the kind of guys at the top on what their takes are and what they're focusing on in the kind of coming future. So then the next talk I'm gonna take you through is Morten Ljungberg, who's a Sitecore sales engineer. His talk was called 30 Minutes of AI in Sitecore. So it's a pretty kind of basic title of the talk, but this was actually my favorite talk of the whole 2 days by a good margin. So he actually he gave us an overview of Sitecore Stream features in this kind of demo website. He had a kind of dummy pet store type of website, and he took us through the Sitecore Stream portal in and of itself, which is the kind of brand kit and the assistant features. And then he went into how all these stream features work in all the different apps like XM Cloud and Content Hub DAM versus Ops, Sitecore Search, Sitecore Personalize, and CDP as well. So he kind of gave in one kind of concise 30-minute demo, he kind of took us through every kind of major thing that Sitecore Stream actually does across the board, across this whole kind of ecosystem. So that was really, really good. And yeah, obviously the Stream kind of focuses on content generation. There's translation stuff, more kind of auto insights as well, which is kind of a new thing, and testing and things like that. So those were really, really good. Kind of look into Sitecore Stream and what it might kind of do for brands in the future. The first thing though, before that on the day one, there was a very early start. So we had a kind of 8 a.m. workshop that Katharina Luger and Jorian Fayard, I'm not sure how I'm pronouncing that, right, but they're solution architects at Sitecore, and they covered a workshop on XM to XP, or XM and XP to XM Cloud best practices, and that was excellent as well. So that was on all these considerations and things that you need to take into account when you're undertaking a migration from XP to XM Cloud. So there's stuff like feature gap analysis. There was options for migration paths, hosting, also personalization and A/B testing, analytics, as well as tools like on Forms and EXM and XDB that don't exist on XM Cloud or are very different than a Forms. It has come out last year, but it's a totally different thing. One kind of surprising thing at the start of this. At the start of the workshop, they asked how many people in the audience are actually or have worked on XM Cloud projects, and only about half the people put their hands up, which was kind of surprising to me. So I would have thought it would have been more. I would have thought most people would have been involved in some way. So I think there's still there's a lot of kind of learning to happen around XM Cloud stuff. But it was really well worth getting up early for the workshop on the day one morning. The next talk I'll take you through is from Vignesh. He's a product manager at Sitecore, and he kind of took us through everything, how Sitecore Stream works in XP. So a lot of the stuff that we've seen, in the keynotes and in Morten's talk, were how it works with SaaS and with XM Cloud and the kind of the composable suite. But Vignesh took us through XP in particular, because obviously there's still a lot of clients are on still on XP. Some have no intention of going to XM Cloud. So there's a danger there of them feeling kind of left behind if most of the talk about Stream is focusing on XM Cloud and those things. So yeah, he was taking us through that Stream. It's a module available on-prem and PaaS that you can download and install. It's available on XP 10.2 and above. and he took us through kind of how it can be used to generate content and variants based on a bunch of different prompts. And yeah, this is in Content Editor, of course. And he was showing how it can help with improving writing and fixing spelling and grammar, making content shorter or longer, or even changing the tone as well. So that was a really nice talk from Vignesh. Next up, we had a talk from Vasily Fomichev. He's the head of digital solutions and a co-founder at Font Digital. And his talk was on reinventing governance with AI. So what he did, he kind of went through some an example around accessibility and branding and digital rights compliance, with an example of how you can use basically I had a live demo on how to create a simple agentic workflow in he used a tool called N8N Nation. I'm not sure how to kind of pronounce that, but yeah, he took us through an example with that of a kind of workflow to translate content in XM Cloud. So yeah, he kind of touched on a bunch of different things around, you know, the importance of creating a clean model for training your data. So, you know, don't just use any the generic stuff that's there, but make sure it's kind of custom to you. And he outlined the data learning effect or the DLE of providing constant feedback to refine your model. So it's not it's, you know, it's updating all the time and evolving. It's not just a kind of one and done thing where you train it and then it just works forever. It's constantly growing and getting better. And he mentioned this human in the loop, he said, for critical workflows to make sure that there's, you know, a real person overseeing work at an important point. So, and that was kind of worked into the workflow as well. So that was a really nice kind of practical example from Vasily. Next up, we had Rich Carroll going through some of the pricing for SaaS platforms. So he's a director of composable enablement. And the talk was kind of billed as, you know, join the session to understand the primary elements and metrics by which Sitecore prices all the SaaS systems. So we kind of thought that there might be some kind of licensing ballparks in there, but it was really more for agencies to kind of price their services. And there was this kind of average, you know, bottom third, middle third, top third used for these pricings. And yeah, this is mainly to outline to agencies what they should be kind of charging for clients. And yeah, this kind of little table to be used for qualifying and disqualifying clients. And yeah, he talked about, you know, the bunch of project plans and discovery templates that are available in the Accelerate program as well. So that was good from Rich. We also had a talk from Emily Lord, who's Sitecore account executive at Horizontal Digital. And she was talking about pairing Sitecore CDP with Salesforce Data Cloud for Ultimate Customer 360, as she called it. And she touched on how Sitecore CDP and Salesforce Data Cloud can kind of work together despite being competing tools. So she went through the similarities and differences between the two and what each platform is best suited to doing. So you can see there in the Venn diagram from the talks, there's, you know, what stuff Salesforce is good at, the stuff Sitecore is good at, and the stuff that they both kind of do. And she touched on these unified customer profiles, how they can give brands 360-degree view of their customers, and about how you can take elements from or data points from Sitecore and from Salesforce and kind of put them together to get a proper, as she said, this 360-degree view of the customer. And she also touched on the Gen Sites or the general insights, Sitecore Stream stuff for Sitecore CDP as well. So that was quite good. Then we had a talk from Derek Hunziker. He's the director of digital technology at Sitecore. His talk was it was called a tech talk for marketers of decoding the jargon and embracing the composable future. And he demystified some of these kind of DXP buzzwords like composable and SaaS and APIs and middleware and AI. So his was he was actually, I thought it would be you know, quite basic, but it was actually really good. There was these kind of overviews of what each of these terms are. Obviously, we can't mostly know these, but he had a lot of analogies and lessons learned across each of those 5 topics. So they were really interesting. Also, he was part of the Sitecore.com website relaunch team from last year. I think the relaunch was. So we got some kind of nice anecdotes from the website relaunch, and also he is involved in the Sitecore marketing team. They're using the brand kits and Sitecore Stream. So what they're actually doing is for each different Sitecore product, they're using a different brand kit. So when you're using some of the Stream features, you're calling the different brand kits that will be you know, trained on what's XM Cloud, what's Content Hub, what's XP, and so on. So it was really interesting to see that that's the way Sitecore are doing it, and with multiple brand kits. So that was a nice little tidbit there from Derek. And then the last two talks, so we had CI Hub. We did a main stage demo with their CEO and founder, Andreas Michalski. So they were one of the sponsors of the event. They gave the audience a first-hand look into CI Hub's connector ecosystem. So they have 27 corporate applications, and the tool can kind of do things like pull assets from Content Hub into Photoshop. So you could be working in Photoshop and calling out assets in Content Hub. And same with Outlook for your email system, or on desktop as well. It's a way of just connecting a bunch of these applications into Content Hub and really getting the best use out of it. So that was a really good demo that we went through, and there's a lot of people in the room were very impressed with it when the talk was finished. As well, another one of the talks from Hans Verbeek. He's a technology manager at Microsoft, and his talk was about leading in the new era of AI. And his is all about this Microsoft vision of the evolution of AI. So from agents able to complete repetitive tasks, so things like inputting new hire information into HR system and answering straightforward questions. What is the dress code in the office? To kind of move on from that to being able to take action. So order a laptop for a new employee and collaboratively solve complex tasks. So onboard 5 employees by Monday. So things like that. So it's really getting much more useful than just getting it to do these basic tasks and stuff. That it's really in a space now where you can almost like give it tasks to complete rather than just answering questions that you could have got if you just kind of did a bit of a search. He went through some of the co-pilots available in Teams and Outlook and Word, PowerPoint and Excel. So it was quite nice to see how they're building out the little features in there. And then he highlighted the Azure AI Foundry's 1,800 plus models as well. So that's it's really nice too. I think there's been more updates on that since as well. I need a few kind of quotes, little gems to come out of that, like co-pilots are for humans, agents are for processes as well. And there's a few more that I've kind of written down from hand. So that's a nice overview there of my favorite 10 talks anyway from the couple of days. So I can hand you over to AJ. I think I can stop sharing, AJ, and you can take over from here. That's all good.
Thank you, Robert.
Yeah.
You guys see my screen?
Yeah, looks good.
Okay, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Mohammed Al-Jafal. I'm Sitecore Practice Lead at the Remarkable Group on Mount Jordan office. I have more than 7 years of experience with Sitecore, and now I'm Sitecore MVP 2021, Technology MVP. So as Rob said, I had the pleasure to join him in SUGCON this year. There's a lot of interesting sessions, where the ones I was interested in more of the technical sessions, and here in the next slides, I'll just give you a brief about the sessions I've managed to attend and the one that I liked the most. The first one is by Jason Wilkerson. It's about the events and webhooks. Jason gave a really interesting talk about how we can extend Sitecore without ever having to deploy code again, as we're not supposed to, as Sebastian said also in his session. Instead of the old way where you needed a code deployment for every small customization, he showed how you can hook into Sitecore authoring API, listen to events, and also use webhooks to push changes or trigger actions externally. Sorry. He also walked us through a complete example. Let's say you have a third-party CMS or a translation platform. You can push updates straight into Sitecore without touching the server. No downtime, no deployment stress. On the technical side, Jason showed how you can configure a webhook to listen for specific item events, like the item saved or item published, the way we used in the old Sitecore XP development cycle, and then trigger a call to an external service that uses the authoring API to update or create content. He even shared tips about handling authentication securely and ensuring that updates are properly validated before hitting Sitecore. It's what very clean and event-driven model. The next one is by Mark Stiles from Belier. He showed us how it's more focused about the analytics and the data, as he was taking a data science courses that he tried to apply in the real world. So Mark's session was a deep dive into the world of analytics, and he emphasized that while Sitecore collects a vast amount of data, the real challenge lies in transforming this data into actionable insight. And by leveraging modern tools like Azure, SQL, and Python, Mark showcased how to process and visualize this data effectively. He shared compelling case studies where businesses used these insights to make informed decisions, leading to improved user engagement and increased conversation. One standout example was how he identified underperforming pages led to content optimization that significantly boosted user interaction. Mark also highlighted the importance of focusing on metrics that matter. Instead of getting lost in a sea of data, he advocated for honing the key performance indicators that align with business goals. This approach ensures that analytics efforts drive tangible results. For those who are interested in exploring further, Mark has made his tool and methodologies available on GitHub. He also published his slides on SlideShare. I recommend everyone to take a look. It's a valuable resource for anyone looking to deepen their understanding of Sitecore analytics. Next session was by Jeroen about unlocking the power of Sitecore search. The session was really refreshing. He showed us that Sitecore search isn't just for building a search bar on your website. He walked us through how you can actually use Sitecore search to power entire dynamic pages, like listing products, articles, or events, all without having to custom build complicated APIs or queries. And the best part was the content authors can control these dynamic lists without needing a developer to step in every time. He shared some real-world demons too. He used the Next.js Search SDK to quickly build search-driven pages, and even showed how you could set up A/B tests on search results, like testing different ranking strategies to see which one converts better. Overall, it was a great reminder that Sitecore Search is actually a really powerful platform, not just a tool for finding things, and it can drive whole experiences if you design it that way. The next one was by Alex Howley about step-by-step optimization for your website build in Next.js and Sitecore JSS. The session also was one of those practical ones, hands-on tools that you already appreciate if you ever struggled with performance in a GSS project. He didn't just through best practices, he took us through a real-world case study showing how his team diagnosed real bottlenecks in a Next.js plus Sitecore JSS app and how they systematically fixed them. Step by step, using actual examples, he shared a really solid optimization checklist too. Things like smarter image handling, reducing unnecessarily API calls, caching strategies for both client-side and server-side, and even tuning your development setup to squeeze out extra performance. He also emphasized the importance of observability, setting up good monitoring so you can catch performance regression early, not when the site goes live. It wasn't just a theory, as I said in the beginning. It was really practical, kind of a paddle-tested advice you can apply to your project immediately, which that's why I think it clicked with a lot of the audience. Next one was by Christine and Liz. They gave a really developer-friendly session about how Sitecore is leveling up the JSS SDK and starter kits for XM Cloud. They talked about how the old JSS setup, especially if you work with them before, could sometimes feel a bit heavy or clunky. Now they've modernized the SDK and the starter kit, making everything lighter, faster, and just a lot more initiative to work with. One thing they really emphasized was removing legacy complexity, things that used to be necessary when JSS had to support all kinds of Sitecore setup, but aren't needed when you're focused purely on XM Cloud. This makes setting up a project way quicker, and it's a lot easier to customize than XM. Overall, the whole vibe was Sitecore knows that better developer experience equals faster projects, fewer bugs, and happier teams. And with these updates, it's clear they are really investing in making that happen. The next session was about synchronizing Sitecore XM Cloud content with Azure. It was by the lifetime MVP Robert Fox. Robert's session was a great behind-the-scenes look at how to keep your XM Cloud environment in sync and why that really matters. He showed how they built a solution using Azure DevOps pipeline that automatically pulls down content and site settings from production into lower environments like test and staging. The benefits of that, you're always testing and validating features on data that is as close to real as possible. No more surprises when something works in staging but breaks in production because of different content structures. On the technical side, Robert shared how they use standard DevOps practices to automate the pull, handling things like serialization, environment variables, and even selective content restores when needed. He was really honest too about some of the bumps along the way, like dealing with content volume and securing the pipeline. A super practical session if you're working with XM Cloud as well. The next one was from Konstantina. Her session was really inspiring. It wasn't about features or code, but more about how we design experiences that people actually want to use. She introduced the idea of the care effect. Basically, when you deeply care about the user's journey, you create experiences that spark trust, loyalty, and even innovation. She showed how this philosophy is shaping the future of XM Cloud's user interface and content authoring experience. We also got a sneak peek into some of the upcoming UX changes, like similar navigation, more initiative, editing flows, and better collaboration tools. It's clear they're moving toward a much smoother, more modern experience for content authors. The big takeaway of this is when you invest in thoughtful user-centered design, you're not just making software easier to use, you're actually helping teams move faster, stay happier, and get better results. Accelerating Success was another great session by Katharina's. Katharina's session was all about speed, but in a smart, sustainable way. She introduced us to the new Sitecore Accelerator program, which is basically Sitecore's way of giving partners and customers a head start on their projects. Instead of starting from scratch every time, Accelerate provides tools, templates, and a really practical cookbook of the best practices for things like discovery workshop, implementation patterns, and even project planning. Catherine has emphasized that Accelerate isn't just about moving faster, it's about getting a better outcome too. By following Google frameworks, teams can avoid common mistakes, speed up delivery, and deliver much more consistent, successful projects. It's a really smart move by Sitecore, especially with so many customers moving to SaaS and needing help navigating the new ways of working. And all is in GitHub, and you can see the progress yourself. The next session was one of my favorites, and this session really was funny and inspiring. For people who knows Andy is the architect behind XM Cloud, but this year he came and presented as a client, a partner, as he's not working with Sitecore anymore. So he was really, it was real, and he was honest about sharing his experiences as a Sitecore architect from a partner perspective. He shared what it was like to actually build a project in XM Cloud, but this time from the outside, like any other partner would. He talked about some of the surprises he faced, things that seemed so obvious when designing the platform, but felt a little different when you're hands-on and in delivery mode. There were funny moments too, where he ran into the same frustrations we all do: documentation gaps, unexpected edge cases, real-world client needs pulling you slightly away from the ideal path. What I really appreciated was that he wasn't defensive. He was super open about the lessons learned and gave great practical advice for partners starting with XM Cloud. It was a full circle moment, seeing how the product stands up when even its own architect has to build with it. The next one was by Pierce about Sitecore at Scale. Piers gave a really powerful session about what it actually takes to run Sitecore at enterprise scale, and I'm talking about 2 billion page views a year, like 250 plus websites, all under strict compliance and security requirements. He walked us through how to design for zero downtime, things like smart deployment strategies, proactive monitoring, and setting up failovers so your site stay online even during updates or incidents. He also went deep into security and compliance, which is absolutely critical at enterprise level. He shared real examples of how things like pen testing, identity management, and network architecture need to be packed into the solution from the very beginning, not as an afterthought. Another key takeaway was about DevOps and automation. The bigger you get, the more important it is to automate everything you can: deployments, content sync, environment refreshes, even compliance reporting. It was a masterclass for anyone who's planning or already managing Sitecore at serious scale. The next one was about Sitecore Marketplace by Tracy and Justin. They gave us a really good look behind the scenes at how Sitecore Marketplace is evolving and what's coming next. They started by showing all the improvements they already made: better search, more quality control, faster publishing for apps and connectors. The marketplace today is already way more useful than even a year ago. Then they gave us a sneak peek into what's coming, things like developer badges, better listing analytics, and tighter integration with Sitecore SaaS products. It's all geared toward making Marketplace not just a store, but real platform for innovation. They also shared lessons learned from the developer program, where early access developers helped us how building and publishing the Marketplace actually feels. It's getting much easier, and Sitecore is listening closely to community feedback. Overall, it's clear Sitecore is serious about making the Marketplace a real growth engine for the ecosystem, not just a side project. The last two sessions, one is what the Alistair session was, the perfect wrap-up. He gave us a first look at XM Cloud content, which is basically the evolution of Content Hub 1 into a fully managed next-generation headless CMS. He started by walking us through a live demo, building content model, creating and editing content, and then showing how easily you can pull that content into a headless front-end app. It felt super smooth, and it's clearly designed for multi-site and multi-channel needs right out of the box. One thing Alistair emphasized was that this isn't just Content Hub 1 with a new name. It's re-architected to be much deeper and more flexible, with support for complex content structures, relationships, and headless delivery patterns that modern apps expect. He also teased some of the features that are still in development, things like richer localization tools, deeper workflows, and tighter integration with the rest of the XM Cloud ecosystem. It's exciting to see how much investment Sitecore is putting into making headless a truly first-class experience. And that was all the session that I could have attended. So thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. Mohammed, can you go back to the slide about
Sure.
Liz and Kristen, I think, session about the new JSS SDK? I believe that's the content SDK, right?
Yeah, let me just go back.
I just want to, I'm not sure if you know that, but is that the new way of working with XM Cloud? Like now, instead of using JSS, we just use the content SDK. Did they? Yeah, that one. If you
This
go back
one?
couple slides, yeah, this one. Go back one,
No.
I think. Back or forward?
Sorry, I'm going back now.
This one.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, what was your question about it?
No, not this slide, Mohammed. I think it's either one behind or one forward. Go the other way. Here you go. Yeah, this guy. So major updates to the JSS SDK. Is this the new content SDK? Is that the session about the content SDK where they announced it?
No, it's about updates on the JSS SDK itself, but more about the starter kits. They are building a starter kits for different scenarios of the projects. that you could use in your projects, like in much faster way?
I think if I may, so I've been
Sure.
to that session as well, and as far as I remember, this was the introduction of the Content SDK. So the Content SDK, or the idea of the Content SDK, is that currently JSS supports both, right, XM and XP, and on the other hand also XM Cloud. So it contains a lot of overhead code that's not used by either the one or the other. And the idea as XM Cloud is, as I mentioned, XM Cloud is different than XM and XP. They've branched off the same version at a certain point of time, but now they are no longer the same. And the idea was to have a minimized SDK that still offers the same functionality as before, but just gets rid of all the stuff that was just there to support XM and XP. So the Content SDK is basically the JSS SDK for XM Cloud only.
Yeah, perfect. So now if we're starting a new project on XM Cloud, like we should go with Content SDK, not with JSS, right?
The Content SDK is not yet in
It's beta, right? It's
beta release, right? So that's something to keep in mind. If you're starting a project now, Liz's recommendation was to definitely go with the Content SDK. Of course, if you have to go live, let's say in a month, then probably this is not what you want. But usually if you start a project now, which is going live in a few months, then this is definitely what you want to build on. I'm not sure if they mentioned a timeline when this will be fully released, but I would look either towards the June release or latest symposium.
All right. I believe mainly like the experience editor support now removed, and that's why they removed a lot of legacy code in the JSS to support the experience editor. So there is no more experience editor for XM Cloud, and that's why it's much faster and better framework for XM Cloud, I believe.
Yeah, that's one of them. So the problem with Experience Editor is that it only supports, and now I'm mixing them usually up. So there's a Chrome's mode and the metadata mode, and I think the new one is the metadata mode, and Experience Editor is only supporting Chrome's. So that's why if you're going fully with the metadata mode, then Experience Editor is no longer supported. And on the long run, that's also the plan, to not use Experience Editor with XM Cloud anymore. If you need to, you can still go with the existing JSS SDKs that support that even in XM Cloud.
All right, perfect. And I believe there is an upgrade path from JSS to Content SDK.
I haven't seen one, but I mean, it's as any JSS updates, I would say. It's a bit of file comparison. There might be a document out there. I'm not sure if it's already is.
Yeah, I saw one in the documentation. Like you can upgrade from JSS SDK to SDK. Perfect. Do you know, guys, if these sessions have been recorded?
They have been recorded, and I think the organizer team is currently working on putting them out. It's usually some effort in it to cut those and add intro and outro to it and check the audio.
Usually it takes, I would say, it takes a couple of months.
Yeah.
But some speakers like Mark already shared their slides. Everyone has their own way.
Perfect. Hey, Doa, you're a little bit late. All right. I'm not sure, guys. Anyone has questions to Mohammed? All right.
No, thank you.
Thanks you for having me.
Sorry for being late.
No worries, no worries.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, everyone. And see you on the next meetup. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
See you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.